In the recent weeks, 2 reports have been released with a strong singular message. It is imperative that any agenda set for the next 40 years will require rapid population reduction in the name of halting global warming and other related myths. The 2 institutions, the Club of Rome and the Royal Society, who have issued these reports, are not interested in helping the world as much as they are in setting a policy standard, the standard which will maintain an oligarchic interest. Similarly, the German Advisory Council on Global Change, which has led an offensive towards decarbonization, held a summit on May 9th attended by Chancellor Angela Merkel and representatives of the most populated countries of the world. The Advisory Council, Royal Society, and Club of Rome are all institutions guided by British Imperial interests. This is the environment being shaped for the June 20th through 22nd United Nations Rio+20 Summit on Sustainable Development. As a follow-on to the original Rio Summit in 1992, which put global warming on the world agenda, this one will undoubtedly make even greater demands for sacrifice for the sake of empire maintenance. Now we're at a moment where the global financial system is at its collapse point. Without the drastic reduction of population numbers, there is no way an oligarchy can maintain its power and influence. What is the reality of the global economic system today? The recent billions in losses from JP Morgan Chase, combined with the collapse of the euro and discussion of Greece's exit from the currency, are bringing to the surface a massive freakout. Combine this with the recent revelations that HSBC Bank has been involved in massive money laundering activities. Former New York branch HSBC officer John Cruz has concluded that millions were laundered on behalf of Mexico's barbarian drug cartels, who are still carrying out murders on a daily basis. Is this the economic system we're supposed to save? Is this the system which the institutional elites say we have to cut consumption and population in order to maintain? Shrouded in environmentalist rhetoric, Jorgen Randers of the Club of Rome was explicit in the Imperial viewpoint that nation-states as we know them up to this point are not going to be the main pivot of policy-making into the future. This, he says, is the fault of governments thinking too much on a short-term basis, and not the fault of the foul system itself. Can short-termism be handled? The answer is yes in principle, but in practice it is very difficult because it probably means strong government, and you basically delegate difficult decision-making to supranational or centralist bodies like the central banks of the world. The intense dislike of stronger government is of course something which will preclude a sane solution to the problem. As witnessed among the nations of Europe, such an approach has already been active, and the physical effects of the demands of supranational institutions is devastating. As we've seen in Greece, the policies of austerity are killing people. Workers' wages have been slashed, youth are unemployed, and crucial healthcare services have been cut. As was reported in the recent weeks, even the newborn are not spared as screening of diseases of children 0 to 3 months has been scaled back. Seeing children dying of diseases that can today be easily detected doesn't make any sense if your interest is the development of your nation. It only makes sense if your interest is rapid depopulation. Neither does this intention differ in the policy towards the youth generation of Europe, which has been cut off from the future. In order to reach population reduction, your youth are the most important part of your nation to destroy. Nations, including our own, are now slated for failure. Humanity will try to grow its economy as fast as possible over the next 40 years. The problem is they won't manage because of slower growth rates and productivity. The unexpected benefit of the smaller population and much smaller GDP is, of course, that the human footprint becomes much smaller over the next 40 years than most people expect, which in turn pushes the crisis to the second part of the century. There are huge advantages with the fact that the GDP will not grow as fast as everyone is trying to make it grow. The rich world will experience stagnation. the income of an American auto worker in Detroit in 2052 will be even lower than it is today. Because the USA has a huge problem with its foreign debt, and a society which is totally incapable of handling the frictions between the classes, and consequently will not manage to get its act together. There are no resource constraints, just an inability in that system, and it will end. No government and people will rapidly mobilize for the rapid reduction of their population and will accept the power of their nations being taken away from them. Governments and people will rapidly organize their society for the sake of their nation's development. The future requires the rapid increase of consumption. In the name of achieving a new platform, we rapidly increase consumption of our current resource base as we move on to a greater level of energy flux density. That, in the immediate, would be the conversion to a nuclear-based economy. That platform will be the basis for development of yet an even greater energy flux density, fusion power, and antimatter reactions. We don't think of being on a finite planet. This is merely our carrier ship, but we have an entire solar system to develop. Why are we allowing ourselves to suffer when the system itself is based on fraudulent debt and criminal activity? This system must be eliminated through bringing back the original 1933 Glass-Steagall policy. We don't bow down to empires, and we resolve challenges not through the destruction of humanity, but its development.